Hello, my name is John Comazzi. I am an associate professor of architecture and will be leading this ALAR 8020 Design Build Research Studio, open to Masters of Architecture and Masters of Landscape Architecture students. The studio is part of a multi-year program in partnership with Albemarle County Parks and Recreation and supported by a Jefferson Trust grant awarded in the spring of 2023. This studio will provide a unique learning experience that leverages the power of collaborative and community-based design by integrating the skills and practices of students, faculty, practitioners, and industry partners for the design and construction of several small-scale outdoor structures to be sited within Biscuit Run Park, the newest park in Albemarle County's park system, scheduled to open in the spring or summer of 2024. Albemarle County is currently finalizing plans for the public access points and trailheads and the network of hiking and biking trails at Biscuit Run Park. That'll be developed in 3 phases. This gives you a sense of the overall site, which it will be, upon completion, the largest park and most publicly accessible park in the county system at roughly 1,200 acres. So we'll be working in various areas within this park system, particularly in the phase 1 section in the middle. These are just some site photos that give you a sense of the varied landscape features throughout the park. The studio will build on the work and research developed during a research seminar that was offered in the spring of 2022, wherein the students collectively produced a comprehensive design research manual that include historical research, basic site documentation, preliminary code analyses, and some precedent studies, including some of the images you see here for projects like contemplative spaces, bird and animal blinds, outdoor learning landscapes, nature-based pavilions and playscapes, and public gathering spaces. So during the seminar, the students really began by engaging with the site and familiarizing themselves with diverse natural landscapes, land features, and historical legacy of the site. Here you see some of the images from a site visit led by some of the representatives from the County Parks and Rec Department. And ultimately, we identified 3 main sites for potential interventions with a series of structures. I'll go into a little bit of detail on those. These are just some preliminary diagrams for these 3 sites. The first is what we're calling home base, which will be in collaboration with CAMBIC, the Charlottesville Area Mountain Biking Club. And they're looking for both some staging areas as well as a kind of soft barrier to separate the general public on the main trail throughout the park system, to separate them from some of the technical courses for the mountain biking tracks. And this is just one precedent we looked at where you can see the kind of development of the soft barrier as well as some seating and staging areas. We also identified several rock formations throughout the site, and the county was interested in possibly developing some small-scale structures that might be used as contemplative spaces or just spaces for people to step off the trail and engage in a different way with the natural environment. So this is just one of many precedents that we looked at as a potential type of structure that might develop for these sites. And then there's also a large pond in the central portion of the site that they refer to as the beaver pond. There are several beaver dens along the edge, and one of the main trails is situated along one of the long edges of the site. So we identified 3 different areas for possible intervention of a large, medium, and small scale bird or animal blind. And here's one of the precedents we looked at as a possible inspiration for that site as well. The Final installations will also support the county's commitment to sustainable practices and initiate new cross-sector partnerships that will explore the innovative uses and applications for upcycled wood materials sourced from various sites within the county park system. In particular, hundreds of large caliper ash trees that have been slated for removal due to the devastating effects of the emerald ash borer beetle. So here you just see some of that material sourcing, and we'll be working pretty closely with UVA sawmilling to mill and possibly dry some of that material for use in the structures. As with any design build project, the work in this studio will be produced collaboratively with project teams working closely with our community partners, local industry representatives, and a range of local practitioners to prepare a full set of detailed construction documents, material prototypes, full-scale mock-ups, fabrication diagrams, relevant code analyses, and construction sequence schedules for the final assembly and installations, which will take place during the summers of 2024 and 2025. And the grant allows for hiring of about 6 students each summer, but that will depend on the overall scope and scale of the projects. And so there'll be more information about that during the studio. The final scope and scale of the projects that will be completed during the summer construction phases will, of course, depend on the programming needs identified by our community partners, the sequencing of the park's public opening, and the accessibility of specific sites, and of course, the availability of resources necessary for fabrication, assembly, and installation. This project resonates with the previous project that I managed in partnership with Anoka County Parks and Recreation, which is in central Minnesota when I was teaching at the University of Minnesota. So this is just a brief description of that process and that project to give you kind of an overall sense of the scope and scale, as well as how the studio might unfold next semester. So we began the semester by really familiarizing ourselves with the site, as well as the programming needs for Anoka County. And in this case, they had 2 programs in particular: a heritage lab, which brought middle school students to the site for a range of history lessons about the natural and historical legacies of the site, as well as the YMCA that used the site for part of their summer camp programming. The students began really with a flurry of activity through model making. And as an overall group, we produced about 300 models early on. And then those models and those systems of assembly were narrowed down to 4 major approaches. And then we ultimately moved forward with 2 of them. The main one on the left, you can see in these images, is a fairly simple tectonic assembly system that was really sort of infinitely flexible and expandable depending on the different configurations of the site and programming needs. So we worked on 3 different sites. These are some early renderings by the students to explore how that simple assembly system could be modified for each of the different sites. It then delved deeply into more details on each of those 3 sites. I should say in this case, the pavilions had to sit lightly on the ground, so there wasn't much landscape. There weren't many landscape interventions as part of these projects, but we do hope to have more landscape as part of the projects in Albemarle County. And then during the studio, we were able to get as far as prototyping and full-scale mock-ups for a lot of the assembly details, which you can see here. We even did a full-scale mock-up of one of the bays of that system. We worked with a local structural engineer to ensure that we were complying with all the regulations set forward by the county. And then during the summer, myself and a team of 8 students assembled, fabricated, and installed the 4 pavilions throughout throughout the site. So we did as much pre-cutting and pre-drilling as possible in the school's workshop, and then trucked those pieces up to the site. Here you see some of the site installation and various construction photos. Once we got the overall sequencing down, the actual installation went fairly quickly. And then these are the 3 pavilions completed. And this gives you a sense of how they were used for both the Heritage Lab as well as the YMCA summer camp. There was a 4th site that was adjacent to the YMCA's archery range. Here are some preliminary studies. And then we worked with 2 local fabricators, Radius Track, that has a proprietary system of crimping and bending standard stud and track systems, as well as MG McGrath, which is a sheet metal fabricator. And here you can see some of the early assembly photos, as well as the mock-up, full-scale mock-up that we did during the studio. Here are some of the construction photos on site. And completed images of the completed pavilion. So certainly available for any questions that anybody should have. Please reach out, and I hope to see many of you next semester. Thanks.